Once upon a time, nestled between rolling hills and snow-capped mountains, there existed a quaint village. It was a place where life moved at the pace of the seasons, and the worries of the world seemed a million miles away. In this village lived a young girl named Lian now. Lian was known throughout the village, not for her wit or her charm, but for her quiet beauty and the haunting melody of her singing voice. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight kissed the dew-kissed petals of the flowers, Lian's voice would echo through the valley. Her songs weren't lively tunes meant to stir merriment or boisterous jigs to make people dance. No, her songs were like teardrops in the night, falling silently, expressing the sorrow that resided in her heart. She sang to soothe her own soul, a soul that had been aching for her mother's embrace for many a year. Her mother had been the most celebrated singer in the land, her voice said to rival the song of the lark. But her voice had also been her undoing, for she had loved to sing so much that she neglected her duties and eventually lost the love of her family. And so when Lian was just a babe, her mother had passed away, leaving her to the care of her grandmother. In the far corner of their yard, amidst the vegetables and herbs, Lian had planted a red rose. It was a tiny sapling when she had planted it, and she was too young to remember why she had chosen that particular spot. But the rose was her treasure, and she doted on it. Every morning, she would water the plant, talking to it in hushed tones as she sprinkled water on its leaves. And every evening, as the sky blazed with hues of orange and purple, she would sing to the rose. Her songs were soft murmurs at first, but they grew in strength and volume, carrying on the wind, mingling with the chirping of crickets and the hoot of distant owls. Years passed, and the rose flourished under Lian's tender care. Its branches reached out like welcoming arms, and its leaves shimmered in all shades of green, promising something beautiful yet to come. But Lian was too busy with her life to notice the rose's growth. She worked hard, helping her grandmother in the fields, her back bent under the weight of responsibility. Evenings were spent mending clothes, and sleep came late, often interrupted by dreams of a woman whose face she couldn't see but whose singing voice echoed hauntingly in her ears. One day, while tending to the rose, Lian noticed something peculiar. It was a cloudy day, devoid of any sunshine, and yet a shadow loomed behind the rose. She turned, half expecting to find her grandmother there, only to be met with empty space. Frowning, she dismissed it as a trick of the light. But the next day, the shadow was there again, longer and darker. Fear pricked at Lian's heart, and for a moment she thought she saw the ghastly face of an old woman peering at her from behind the rose. Panic seized her, and she fled to the safety of her home. That night, sleep evaded her, and she spent the hours after midnight watching from her window. As the first hint of dawn touched the sky, she saw it again. The shadow, curiosity, now overpowered her fear, and Lian decided to follow it. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out into the cold morning, her eyes fixed on the strange shadow. It seemed to move just out of her reach, always there, yet always a step away. She followed the shadow through the familiar paths of the village, past the baker's house with its warm, yeasty smell, and the cobbler's shop with its worn leather chairs. The shadow led her to the outskirts of the village, to the very edge of the woods that bordered their small community. Here, the trees stood tall and thick, their branches intertwined as if in a secret conversation, and the sunlight struggled to penetrate the leafy canopy overhead. Lian hesitated. Her grandmother had often warned her of the dangers that lurked within the woods, of wild animals and even wilder men who sought to do harm. But the shadow beckoned, and with a deep breath, Lian stepped into the cool shade of the woods. As she ventured deeper, the trees seemed to close in around her, their silent scrutiny making her skin crawl. The path grew fainter, swallowed by the undergrowth, and the sounds of the forest grew louder, a symphony of birdsong and rustling leaves. Suddenly, the trees seemed to part, revealing a small clearing bathed in an ethereal glow. In the center of the clearing stood an old oak, its branches gnarled and twisted like the limbs of an ancient crone. And at the foot of the tree lay a wooden chest, its surface covered in moss and lichen. Lian's heart raced as she approached the chest. An inexplicable sense of familiarity washed over her, and she felt an overwhelming urge to open it. With trembling hands, she lifted the heavy lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay dozens of letters tied together with a faded blue ribbon. The letters were old, their edges brittle and their seals broken. But as Lian carefully unfolded the first letter, her heart skipped a beat. It was written in her mother's hand, the same handwriting she had seen in her dreams. The letter began with the familiar greeting, "My dearest Lian," and in flowing script, her mother poured out her heart, sharing stories, giving advice, and pouring love onto the page. With each letter, Lian felt a part of her soul awakening. These weren't just pieces of paper and ink. They were fragments of her mother's love, each word a whispered secret meant just for her. There were letters filled with memories of Lian's childhood, of how she had laughed as a baby, her tiny fingers curled around her mother's finger, and how she had slept in her arms, her breathing as regular as the ticking of a clock. There were letters of apology for the mistakes her mother had made, for the times she had chosen music over her daughter, and her hopes and dreams for Lian's future. And then there were the prayers, heartfelt pleas for her daughter's happiness, for her health, and for her safety. As Lian read, tears streamed down her face, mingling with the dirt and sweat of her work-roughened hands. With every turn of the page, she felt her mother's presence enveloping her, a warmth that chased away the chill of the woods and the ache in her heart. When she finally looked up, the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange. The clearing was no longer bathed in ethereal light, and the shadows had grown long. Startled by the sudden rush of emotions, Lian quickly closed the chest, tucked the letters inside her shirt, and hurried home. That night, for the first time in years, Lian slept with a smile on her face. She dreamed not of a woman with an unknown face, but of a garden filled with blooming roses and the sound of laughter. In the morning, Lian woke with a renewed sense of purpose. She went straight to the rose in the corner of their yard. It was a glorious sight. Its velvety petals unfurled in shades of crimson and gold. And as she looked at the rose, she understood. The rose was never just a flower. It was a promise. A promise her mother had made to always be with her, to guide her, to protect her. And the shadow, it wasn't a ghost, but her mother's love, watching over her, guiding her. Lian knew then that her mother's spirit lived on, not in the shadows of the past, but in the blooming present and the hopeful future. With a newfound determination, Lian began to sing. Her songs were different now, filled with the joy of rediscovery, the strength of love, and the courage to face whatever life might bring. Her voice echoed through the valley, carrying her message of hope and healing to every corner of the land. And though her mother was gone, Lian knew that she was never truly alone. For the love of a mother is like a rose, enduring, resilient, and eternally beautiful, its fragrance lingering in the heart forever.